name's Jeffrey Bützer. Welcome to the first episode of our podcast, Day for Night. I'm going to be interviewing some musician friends, and we're going to talk about movies. Today's guest is my good pal, Sean Zierfoss, who's the drummer and co-founder of a great Atlanta band, Small Reactions. I'm a big fan of. And I'm ready to start talking to him. So I'm ready to have Sean come in. Hey, Sean.
Hey, Jeffrey, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Thanks for being on the first episode of the Day for Night film podcast.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm glad to do it. All right, so you picked a movie that we're going to talk about in a minute, but I want to ask you, do you remember the first movie you saw as a baby or a child?
I think I always watched stuff as a lot of kids do, but the first movie I remember seeing, and it was like an event, I remember start to finish, was Jurassic Park. And I guess I was 7 because I came out in '93. So it was I was 7. Summer movie. I remember Jurassic Park as the first. So yeah.
Like in a movie theater, or was that like at home?
No, we went to the movies and saw it. And in fact, my parents divorced when I was young, and so I oftentimes, like, the big movies I would see twice. I would go with like each parent. And so I remember seeing Jurassic Park twice in the theaters. Yeah, so yeah, it's great. It was awesome. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a really good first movie. It probably was kind of scary. I think the first one I went to go see was this movie called Greystoke, and it was like a Tarzan movie with the guy from Highlander. I can't think of his name, and I just remember there's a lot of I remember a lot of penises, but I haven't seen it since, so I don't know if there was penises in it. But I just remember being shocked by nudity in a movie, and that was probably like '84 or something, because my family has always taken me to movies. The second dumb question I have is, do you own any like movie memorabilia, like any T-shirts, or like something from a set of a movie, or like just anything dumb?
I'm trying to think. I don't have a lot of movie memorabilia that I collect. I collect mostly music memorabilia. I will say, though, as kind of a tie-in between both of those, my favorite music movie is That Thing You Do. And
Oh yeah,
I was pricing 7-inch records the other day and came across the promo single for That Thing You Do. And I was like really excited about it, but I can't buy all the good stuff from the store. So it's currently for sale at Criminal Records.
I have the
Yeah,
I have the single. Like, I don't know if you remember those. That might have been like a little past your prime. It was called a single. It was a cassette single. Like, it'd be a cassette with just 2 songs, and instead of like a little pop open case, it would slide in. And I have the single that my mom got of That Thing You Do, and I think the B side is like an instrumental or something.
Right.
All right, so Sean, you want to introduce the film that you picked for us to watch?
So yeah, I chose Three Women by Robert Altman, and when I first came across this movie, I was looking specifically for either Nashville or The Player on Netflix, and this was the one that was available instead. And it's not really a movie you stumble into really easily. I mean, it's strange, it's abstract, it's kind of ethereal, and but yeah, it definitely left an impact. And I sorry, the dog is so yeah, it left an impact on me, and yeah, just, I mean, I ended up really liking it. And if you've never seen it, it's the story of as the title would imply, 3 women, and their lives kind of intersect in kind of a strange way, and they all kind of orbit around this central kind of somewhat distant male character, but it's overwhelmingly about the women that kind of inhabit this space. So yeah, I really enjoy it.
What was your like history with Robert Altman before that? Had you seen any of his movies?
I had actually only seen clips of The Player before,
You like
and
Popeye?
I've never seen Popeye. No, never.
Oh,
Yeah, I've never seen Popeye.
or just clips of the player.
Say that again.
Oh, just clips of the player. That's all you'd seen.
Yeah, just clips of The Player, which is why I was looking for it, because I thought that yeah, it seemed like something I would want to see all of, and yeah, and so I sought out more of his stuff, and obviously what I've seen in The Player is quite a bit different from Three Women, and so yeah, but like I said, I really enjoyed Three Women. So
Yeah, Three Women's like a really weird starting point for him because it's really dissimilar to like every film I've seen by him. My introduction was probably this movie called Kansas City because I was a film projectionist in the 90s, and it was like the first one that came out when I was working, and it looked kind of like a gangster movie from the 30s. It had Jennifer Jason Leigh, and I thought it was okay. I was like 17 or 18, and like I was like really into like I don't know, like Pulp Fiction and stuff like that, which I still like. But I was kind of underwhelmed by it. And then when I was like studying film, Robert Altman, you get to him eventually, like when you're going through all the Americans. And so I watched Shortcuts, The Player. I could not get into Nashville. I just didn't like the look of it. It was just like blue jeans and cigarettes and mustaches and something about it. I could never like even start it. And then I kind of just like was like, Altman, whatever. Like he's fine. I knew Paul Thomas Anderson. I know it's one of his guys. And then Three Women's what like solidified my like for him. And it's an interesting movie because it came out in 1977, which is the same year Eraserhead, Suspiria, Annie Hall, which that doesn't relate, but I'm trying to think Star Wars and Buñuel's Obscure Object of Desire. And I've always said that I think if you showed it to someone and lied to them and said that this is a David Lynch movie, I think you could get away with it. It's just got this like otherworldly, it's dreamlike, but not like in a, I don't know, kind of Kafka way. It's more just like, I don't know. It's so hard to put your finger on like how strange of a movie it is without anything truly surreal happening. Like nothing otherworldly happens, but it's just the whole mood is so unsettling.
yeah, it is, and it gets weirder as it goes too. Like Pinky, Sissy Spacek's character, sort of arrives, and she's a little left of center when we first meet her, and then obviously as it goes on, she sort of gets more and more abstract. But Millie reveals more of herself too, and we get to know her more. And yeah, just the way those two characters kind of intersect and play off of one another is like really interesting to me. And yeah, it just gets, yeah, it is. Unsettling is a word that I kind of use to describe it as well. So yeah, it is. It's definitely unsettling. And I mean, it's challenging too. Like you can't passively watch the movie. You have to like actively watch it. So
it's a very like the color scheme is almost aggressive too because it's like it's in the 70s, so everything is kind of brownish and in the but then like they have this stark yellow all the time and then like purple, which like I read once that books that have purple book covers are the lowest selling books. Like purple is just like not like the color that really draws you in. And like their apartment complex is purple, and she's always wearing these bright yellow dresses. And like there's just this artifice to the whole thing. And like I said, the reason I would compare it to Lynch is like mostly the old couple. They remind me a lot of the old couples that are like in Eraserhead and Mulholland Drive, which obviously, whether he saw it or not, this is like a sister film to Mulholland Drive. I don't know if Lynch has seen it. Like, I don't think it's like borrowing directly from it, but just thematically, like, there's a whole lineage of 1966 or whatever. I think it's 66 Persona by Bergman, which I think you watch most of today, right?
sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And in 1974, you have a movie called Celine and Julie Go Boating from France. That's like the similar thing with these two women. But hey, you know the movie Desperately Seeking Susan with Madonna?
I know of it. I've never
You
seen
know
it.
that? It's her and Rosanna Arquette. It's based on Julie and Celine Go Boating. It's like, well, heavily inspired. And then like you have this, and then you have three women, and then Mulholland Drive, and even Lost Highway to some degree. But like these films where like female characters kind of like change their roles, because like there's a point in the film, like the people haven't seen it. If you want to show a picture, Renee, of Sissy Spacek or Shelley Duvall, those are the two main actresses. There's Shelley Duvall looking cool with her bob, and much like Persona, one character is extremely chatty and talks nonstop, and then the other one is almost Sissy Spacek is like almost childish and like just sort of like completely looks up to her. And then about a little past the midway point, there's an incident which you can't really. There's no spoilers in this movie. I can tell you the very ending, and it's not going to affect the way you watch the movie. But there's an event that happens, and then when it's over, they've like changed their roles where Sissy Spacek is the dominant one, and yeah, it's a pretty interesting dynamic and movie, and yeah, it's on the Criterion Channel if you want to watch it, anybody. And also the score I was looking up, it's by this guy named what is it, Gerald Busby, and I guess it's like one of the only films he's ever scored. What did you think of the music, Sean?
I actually really liked it. I mean, I often think, and I think this all sort of comes back to um, why why certain movies or why certain art resonates with me. And I think oftentimes it's because it's like not typical. Like it's, there's nothing particularly easy about this film. And I mean, the soundtrack's not easy. Like the story's not easy. I kind of want to be pulled off center some, and a big blockbuster is always a lot of fun. With car chases and whatever else. But these films where it's more character driven and more dialogue driven, and the story's more abstract, and the soundtrack's left field, and all these different things. Kind of, I don't know. I mean, we want to be kind of pulled somewhere else, and that's sort of what this did. And that soundtrack is sort of part of that too. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't do a lot of research about the soundtrack. It's odd. It almost reminds me of some of Herzog's like 70s scores, with like weird, like I don't know, they sound like those little funny whistles, and it's like doo, 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 doo. Like
Right,
the
right.
score. It's like really, it's just like, yeah, it's kind of bonkers. Yeah, this was an interesting pick because there's some directors I kind of know up and down, and I know a lot of their work. But Altman's like I said, he's a guy I kind of always looked at from afar. Like I really like Shortcuts and The Player in the '90s. Like he had this run, but then there's like movies that like I really just didn't care for at all. But then one thing I think me and you both have a kind of dislike of Prairie Home Companion, like the radio show,
Right,
right? It's like audio Cracker Barrel. I don't
right.
think either of us are fans of it, but I love his. Have you seen his film? Like,
No, I haven't. No.
well, I don't like. I'm like you. I don't like it at all. I can barely listen to it. It makes me kind of mad.
Right.
And the movie is like it's got Kevin Kline, one of my favorite actors. He plays that Jack Noir, whatever that character is.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody correct me in the comments. I don't, whatever, something Guy Noir. I think that's his name. And like, yeah, I was like, it's pretty cool that like Altman could make something I hate like not only palatable, but it's like a really cozy movie because they're all in it takes place in this on the stage and sound stage of like where they record, and then at a diner. And I don't know, it's got Michael Madsen's sister. I can't think of her name, Virginia Madison, and it's like a really pleasant movie. And I actually found out that Paul Thomas Anderson like co-directed it because Robert Altman was so old they were worried he was gonna like die, and they said you've got to bring in like a co-director, and PTA like refused to put his name on it. He like was like, no, just I don't even want anyone to know I did this, and nobody knew for a long time after he died. But they had kind of a close relationship. And yeah, I don't. One of my early experiences seeing Altman because like in the '90s and early 2000s, like we didn't just have access to like quickly look at somebody, but he would do introductions on some Criterion DVDs. He did one on Rashomon. I think that's the first time I ever saw him. And I thought he looked like a big cartoon owl, and I liked him.
Oh, that's great.
One of my sort of questions you kind of were talking about is, I mean, obviously, like you love movies, and I kind of know some of your taste, and you like everything. But do you think that you tend to prefer plot-driven stuff like Coen Brothers, or like I don't know, like I don't know, Coen Brothers is a good example of plot-driven movies, or do you like more like character pieces like Paul Thomas Anderson, like this? Like, do you think you have a preference one over the other?
I mean, if we're kind of talking like David Lynch type stuff, in regards to like Twin Peaks, for example, Twin Peaks is a perfect example for what I like. Like, it is character driven. And I think Mark Frost like kind of like made that a little more tangible than some of the other, David Lynch like films, I guess, in a lot of ways. But I liked that because it is sort of character driven. And even David Lynch was like, we never really wanted to solve the murder. Like we didn't,
Right.
that wasn't the goal. And the studios like made him solve the murder. And then the rest of the series is like not very good. After 1.5 seasons. And so I kind of gravitate towards that a lot. I go back to when, I was in film class. I didn't make films, but I got a film studies minor, and I took a Hitchcock class, and we watched Vertigo and Psycho and The Birds. And we also watched North by Northwest. And North by Northwest is the action movie. And I remember my teacher being like, Vertigo is the one you watch when you want to do film studies, when you want to like look at motif and like really delve into like, this mise en scene and whatever else. But like North by Northwest is the one you watch when you just want like a blockbuster. And so the teacher's like, that's the one I always go back and rewatch. Like Vertigo, I might watch every now and then, but North by Northwest, I watch all the time. And so I kind of agree with that too. Like sometimes you just want a palate cleanser. Like sometimes you want to be challenged and watch a Vertigo, and sometimes you want to watch the North by Northwest. So, I mean, I kind of generally gravitate towards character-driven things. Like The Conversation is one of my favorite movies. Like what happens in that, So yeah, I mean, it is like, I don't know. It's got to be a good character, and I mean, Lost in Translation, same.
Yeah. I get sort of the way my brain works is I prefer like experiential, episodic. Like I've talked about him a lot. I really like Paul Thomas Anderson as far as like Americans. And what part of it is my brain. I'm a people person. Like I like to just watch characters. And we talked about it earlier today. Like I think one of our favorite Quentin Tarantino movies is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because it's like there's like zero plot and it's just you're spending time. And part of that is my brain. I have a really hard time keeping up. Like when I watched the new Dune and like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, I have a difficult time keeping up because I'm like interested in the people. And I'm like interested in what they're saying, but sometimes the plot, like,
right?
I'm like, oh wait, this is like, what is it? He's double crossing him, and and like Lord of the Rings and stuff. I just get like, I don't know that world, and so like those movies just kind of like, it's funny because that stuff like goes over my head, but then like stuff like this, I can watch like 4 or 5 times, and like, really enjoy it a lot. So I think, but that being said, like Fargo and like, or like Coen Brothers and Hitchcock, they're very plot driven filmmakers, and I enjoy them. You were talking about Hitchcock. I actually, my mother and I used to have like a Friday night when I was a kid. We watch a Hitchcock movie every week, and North by Northwest quickly was like my least favorite. Like we went through like some of the British ones, like 39 Steps, Lady Vanishes, Um, Rear Window is probably my all-time favorite, just because I
Mhm.
love how it's like so
Right.
self-contained and just like strange and like I don't know. But yeah, North by Northwest I've only seen once because I honestly didn't like it. I was like because it was like an action movie and like that's not what I wanted from him, you know.
Right.
But that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that was just something I had on my list. Do you have a favorite like decade of films?
Man, I don't really know. I mean, we talk about we talk about like the 60s being like, the late 60s, early 70s being the best decade for film. And we obviously have, I mean, the Hollywood Renaissance is then. But we have that same thing happening like worldwide too, like in the mid 60s to like early 70s. And so, I gravitate towards American cinema most often, but I do get into some of the other like new waves from like different countries, and like we studied Czech New Wave, and I mean we in film class we spent a lot of time on French New Wave, but yeah, I mean the Czech New Wave in particular is. I mean, I was thinking about some of my favorite movies as I was kind of preparing for this today, and my favorite Czech New Wave film was Closely Watched Trains from '66, and yeah, I mean, as I was like listing these things, yeah, the late '60s kept coming up, and I was not surprised to remember that '66 is Closely Watched Trains for the Czechs, on that one.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good year. It's really funny that you said that. Today I was at the skateboard park with my kids skating, and I was talking to this musician guy who skates too, and I was explaining what our podcast was, and I said part of it's like an education for me because I mean I'm somewhat knowledgeable in film, but there's all these little pockets that like I just know nothing about. And he's like what? And I was like, well, like the Czech New Wave. And he's like, I don't know what that is because he's not that big of a film guy. But
right,
I was like, yeah, I know like Japanese New Wave and French New Wave, obviously, and I know a lot of like movements and like one of our future guests coming up is Ben Tricky, and I'm like, I've never seen a single Hal Hartley movie, which is like weird because I grew up in the '90s, but I haven't seen any of his movies. So part of this like process, this first one we're doing is a movie me and you have both seen several times, so that was cool. And you answered my first question because I was going to ask you like how you came across it. Um, but anyway, yeah, it's just funny you said that because like literally I was like, yeah, like I know nothing about the Techno wave past like Milos Forman and stuff,
right.
like because he did some right.
I think so. It's been a minute since
Can you kind of
you know
characterize some of it for me and like the people who have no idea what we're talking about?
right.
Like, how would you characterize like Czech New Wave movies?
I mean, this particular, well, the one that we studied the most, like I said, was this sort of Closely Watched Trains, which is like a it's a film about a guy that has to let through um, the Nazi trains basically, and it's sort of like coming of age. In the process of the film, like he decides to sort of like become a man and make. I don't want to ruin it, but like make decisions that sort of reflect that.
So
And
it's not too far off from like Truffaut and stuff. Then
it feels very Truffaut. Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I think a lot of those films sort of capture the transition from youth to adulthood, and because that's what most films are going to capture, some sort of transition, and that's the transition that they sort of hone in on, is that transit point when we go into something else. And a lot of times these characters are flawed and they like don't make it over that threshold into adulthood, or they like transform into something else, or they try to transform and can't. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of that same sort of tension. The films look similar, they feel similar. um I mean, yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's like one of those pockets of movies like that. I just there's so much to watch. That's why like I wanted to do this. I wanted to like because I don't feel stagnant because there's like 35 movies on my list of stuff I want to watch right now. But like I'm getting people to introduce me to stuff that I haven't seen because I'm not like you'll talk to these like snobs who like think that film's dead, but there's so many interesting like filmmakers out right now. One filmmaker, I don't know. Have you watched any of Rick Alverson's movies?
No.
He's the guy that did the comedy and entertainment with Neil Hamburger. Did you see that
Okay.
one? Oh,
I love Neil Hamburger. I still haven't watched.
I couldn't remember if you've seen that. But I was gonna say, I should say this for the end, but like a recommendation of a movie. If you like Three Women, I think people should seek out Rick Alverson's film, specifically the comedy with Tim Heidecker, and, and then entertainment with Neil Hamburger and John C. Riley, and neither of them are very funny. But they kind of share this sort of like American Nightmare sort of motif that like going back to um, Three Women. One thing I had, by the way, it was kind of funny in my notes today. I'm not a good note taker. I didn't go to school, so I don't take notes. My coworker was like, "What is that?" I was like, "It's my notes for the podcast," and it just said humor question mark. And then, I watched a lot of people talking about how funny this movie is. And okay, so you and I have had this conversation about how I think the movie The Master by Paul Thomas Anderson is like really, really, really funny. And I see humor in a lot of like dark movies and like Kubrickian humor where it's not really like you're not really like laughing at like the normal things you would laugh at. It's just funny because of the type of movie it's in and it's the line, or whatever. This is the movie I didn't really pick up. Like I did. I feel like when they tried to be like funny, it was just more tragic. Like it was the reverse effect. Like when she would say something funny, it was just really sad. And
Yep.
even like of course, it depends on what mood you're in when you watch a movie. But I wrote down. Do you know the gag like how every time she gets in her car, she slams her dress in it.
Yeah, totally. Yes. Yeah.
Like it's funny, but like it's not funny in like a traditional sense where like you're like you kind of just feel really bad for her because she's kind of
Right.
like it has the reverse effect of most black comedy, where most black comedy you're still kind of laughing like not with the character, but not necessarily at them. And in this, I just like every time something funny would happen, I was like, oh man, because you already kind of feel bad for Shelley Duvall because like we didn't really go too much into the plot because people should just watch it. But
Right.
it's like she wants to be like the socialite and have all these parties, and she's telling like Sissy Spacek constantly like how like popular is she, but nobody likes her. Like none of her friends, like she doesn't really have friends. And like when she invites everybody over for a party, she prepares this really sad dinner with like cheese crackers with like cheese whiz, and like none of them show up. They show up to tell them that they're not coming. And
Right.
like what I mean, like the humor is like it's more tragedy than
Well,
humor.
yeah, she's just so self-absorbed. And I mean, you kind of again, it's like the characters are so good, and I mean, it's I don't know, it's this weird tension between like this really strange situation, but these like really tangible characters. Like Shelley Duvall's performance in it is just like I mean, we see her and we feel her, and like yeah, it's so realistic, and you feel so bad for her like the whole time.
And then when they and she's like, she's really nice to every character because she wants everyone to like her, but she's really mean to Sissy Spacek. And then when it flips and like they change roles, she's still like passive, but now to Sissy Spacek. And so it's like this weird, just like her character is like abused through the whole movie. So that's why like the humor, like where a lot of people are like, oh, it's got a lot of funny moments. Like normally I would like crack up with that kind of stuff, but in this case, I didn't really like find any of it like very like endearing or funny except for like a few sweet moments. Yeah, Sissy Spacek, as you know, is like one of my favorite actresses, and I think that like even talking about The Shining, where she's like Shelley Duvall's a nervous wreck. I think this is like a real high point for both of them. And the third woman, whose name's like completely escaping right now. I haven't seen her in a lot.
Janice Rule.
Yeah, Janice Rule. I don't. Has she been in a lot of stuff?
Man, I don't really know. I'm not certain. I haven't seen her in a lot.
I didn't recognize her because that 70s isn't like a big period for me. When we were talking about favorite eras, I mean, I like movies right now. I think we're in like a really good place with like new movies because of all these streaming sites that are like just pumping money into like Jim Jarmusch, and they're just like, yeah, make a movie. Here's a
Right.
couple million. And so I think we're getting like a lot of great movies. But I do love the '60s like you because there's just like, did you finish Persona today?
No, I didn't finish it. No. In fact, I watched. Um, I basically got through the opening montage, which had recall. I recall seeing in the past.
It's like it's the one everybody talks about because it's like a really early example of this character melding. And I consider Persona to be, I told you, like on the Mount Rushmore of any film buff. Like, you know, you should watch Eisenstein, Wells, Kubrick, and Persona, and several others. I mean, there's like, 8.5. There's a bunch of movies I think people should watch, but it's like a master class in acting, a master class in writing, because it's almost like a Leonard Cohen song. It's this like
Mhm.
terse film with so much to say, with so few words, and like such a like sort of nuanced storyline, but with like hardly anybody talking. And there's like a really erotic scene where they don't show anything, like a woman's just describing something,
Mhm.
and it's really incredible. It's a movie I think everyone should watch, and like everyone brings it up with Three Women, but I honestly don't. I mean, other than the theme of characters, they have such different looks and such different feels. But yeah, it's definitely a movie like I think people should watch along with this. It'd be a good double feature. It's really short. It's like an hour and 22 minutes or something like that. Um, we're hitting about 36 minutes. I'm trying to watch the clock, Renee. Thanks to Cosmos Creative TV for putting our show on, and I think PW Shelton's doing the intro. I don't know if it's going to be on this one. Uh, I got a couple questions, and then we're going to get to your film recommendation. I wanted to ask you a very broad. Do you have like at this moment a favorite film or a favorite filmmaker of all time?
Man, God, I love the Coen brothers. I don't think I've seen a bad Coen brothers film, and I haven't seen all of them. There are a couple of holes. Um, but I don't know. I love the Coen brothers. Talking about characters, they always have good characters. Um, they're good at making a plot driven film. They're good at just making, kind of an open ended, character driven, dialogue driven film. I mean, they kind of do all of it. They're well shot. And God, when they want to be funny, it's like it's hilarious. Like you and I talk about A Serious Man all the time.
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
the poster up there. It's right behind us. I have the Master, a Boonwell poster, and Serious Man. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of my all time favorites. It's just so oh man, there's so much to unpack in that movie, and
Right.
oh yeah, it's incredible. That's cool. Yeah, I know you like the Coen Brothers a lot. I don't really dislike any of their movies, even their stuff like Intolerable Cruelty. I mean, if you hold it up against Fargo or Miller's Crossing or Barton Fink, it's like not a great movie, but if you put it up against other films that were out in 2003 or four, whenever that came out, like just romantic comedy, I mean, it blows all of them away. It's like it's still a good movie, and that's probably what I consider maybe their worst movie, or I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think didn't we talk about was The Serious Man? Was that one on our list? Like to maybe do when we were pitching movies to talk about?
I think we did kind of talk. I think we talked loosely about doing that one, perhaps. So if
Yeah,
nobody does it, we'll cycle back, and I'll come back. We'll talk about
yeah, that'll be the next one. Yeah, yeah, we didn't really talk about it. I mean, anybody can Wikipedia. We didn't talk about a lot of like interesting things about this movie because it's all on the Wikipedia page. Like it's based on a dream that Robert Altman had when he was like in a coma. He woke up and just wanted to write like this nightmarish thing. I believe he wrote it in a hospital bed. Um, but I kind of talked to you in the pre-interview this morning. I don't. I think you're like me when it comes to like sort of this. I wouldn't even call this surrealist, maybe impressionistic films. I like analyzing to me is just like, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, it's like
it.
Lynch. Like, I don't think that you need to. break down symbolism. I don't think, there's a lot of stuff in this film, but I don't think there's like an agenda he had that we can break down in a fan theory. You know?
Right.
I think the movie's just really good to experience. I think if you come away, if you're like an analytical person who wants to see all this, there's a lot of stuff in there, like their names, the three women's names are Mildred, and Willie. They're all like sort of variations, so it's basically Millie, and Willie,
Right.
are like the three women. And someone pointed out, you can reverse a W, and they're all Millie. And like I said, you can't really spoil the story, but the ending, uh, there's a complete shift in everyone's relationship. And so there's a lot of ways you can view this movie, but I don't think there's like a wrong way. And I think the best way to go into this movie, like you did, is just blindly and not like trying to like overthink what every single like mural and snake actually means.
Right.
Did you watch that? Did you watch that video I sent you of that woman that would analyze? Did her analyze? Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I
okay. It's
didn't
probably
watch it.
good.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to come in. I mean, I think it was mostly time constraint, but I wanted to come in like open and
Yeah, with your own thought. I listen to other people and then I just regurgitate what smart people say. That's what they told me how to do on a podcast. They're like, you just listen to other people and then just pick up little
Right.
tidbits they say, and then you'll sound real smart. No, but yeah, her little like whole theory was interesting, and she had some cool points. But I might have told you this. I watched this one about how this guy thinks that Punch Drunk Love is really a Superman origin story, and I mean, he's wearing a blue jacket and a red tie. I mean, I don't think like they would hit it that hard if it was like a Superman story in disguise. So yeah, a lot of times I don't really care about that stuff.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, we both give this 4 buckets of popcorn or 2 thumbs. You can't
totally.
you can't give thumbs up. That is copywritten by Roger Ebert, rest in peace. But we can. I think we both, highly recommend people watch this. I don't know where it is right now, but I think viewers of the internet are resourceful people and they'll find it. I don't think this one's super easy to watch right now. There it is on Criterion.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's on Mubi and all that stuff. Well, thanks, Sean. Yeah, close out. It doesn't have to be similar to this, but I think you have a film recommendation. And mine, once again, is if you like these kind of movies, I would watch Entertainment by Rick Albertson, and any Rick Albertson movie, because I think he's like an American master. He did The Mountain with Jeff Goldblum a couple years ago. A really good movie called New Jerusalem, and he's a guy who like I've interviewed him once, and he's just somebody to keep your eye on. But so, what's your film recommendation?
So yeah, I might connect back. Maybe I have a thing for train movies in a way. But I would recommend, and it's a popular one, but I would recommend if you haven't watched it or if you haven't watched it recently, Pickpocket from 1959
Oh, yeah.
is one of my absolute favorite movies. Shot, written quickly, shot even quicker, I believe. And God, some of the shots they get in that film are just like, I mean, I watched it and it was like my jaw dropped. I was like, man, this is.
I just watched the Bresson's movie about a donkey. You know that one? I can't think of the name of it. Do you know that one?
I don't think so. No.
It's just as good. It's incredible. Are you very familiar with like Harmony Korine, like Gummo and stuff like that?
I do know those films. I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah, have you seen them? Or maybe Spring Breakers or Mr. Lonely. I've always felt like there's this weird kinship with Bresson and Harmony Korine. They both have this thing for like finding people who are either aren't actors or don't look like actors. And because that's one of the things that like Pickpocket, people almost seem hypnotized in that movie.
Right.
Like the acting is so strange.
Right.
I haven't seen it in a while, but yeah, that's a great recommendation. That's like a really, really good one. We were in a band together, Bicycle Eaters, and we had a song called Pickpocket.
Yeah.
Do you remember that, Sean?
I do remember that. Yeah.
I'm gonna interview like Chris Farley. Do you remember when you were in that band with me?
Right, I do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Full disclosure: Sean and I are in a band together now. but that's okay. This is the pilot episode. I want to talk to somebody I know, not some weirdo from the internet who I've never met in person. That's for my later when I'm going to get more into scandals and stuff, and it's going to get pretty good and juicy. So stick around. Yeah, thanks again to Renee and to Creative Cosmos Television and Creative Cosmos. I can't remember names of stuff. I think I reversed the words, but you know what it is. You're looking at it. And Sean, is there anything else you want to touch on before we go?
I think we kind of covered all the.
Yeah. Do you have anything to promote? Do you got any shows coming up? I think this will go up next week.
Yeah, a couple things. We got a couple Atlanta shows coming up. Small Reactions does, and I have an album that came out last year with Small Reactions as well, and touring some, and then the other projects are active. You and I have a show coming up in a couple weeks.
Yeah, for my book release show. It's funny you mentioned that.
Yeah,
I'm releasing this book August 18th at the Earl with our friends Blood Circuit, great band, friends of Tom Cheshire, a friend of this beautiful channel, and Chrome Castle. That I really like those guys. I might get some of them on here because they're film guys too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, if you don't know who Sean is and you're watching this for another reason, look at his band Small Reactions. I think we're done. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks.
Over and out.